Tina Bird, welcome to an early morning shoot. And you've travelled the whole way from Southampton once again, and we're going to concentrate on your pictures, and there they are. Now, we've already covered some of your images, but this particular one is very important because, and for those of you who didn't see part one, why should anybody pay a blind bit of attention to what you're talking about? Tina,
so
your turn to speak now.
I think all abductees should be listened to, not just me. There are millions of us out there, and we all can't be wrong. We're not wrong. You know when you see something, and you know when something happens to you. So, and when things do happen to you, they do have an effect on you, psychologically, emotionally, and physically. So some of the physical aspects, you've just seen a picture there of my behind my left eye, and I took that snapshot at the hospital, and that's a picture of an image behind my eye. I had bleeding, as you can see, with that red.
Okay, so we've got three basic sections
Yep.
of this.
Yep.
So that we got this section. So what does that mean? Or does he
That's that was the, as he was explaining it to me. That was the depth and vision of the eye. Everything was fine. It's the little blue square below. The red line around it there is actually bleeding behind the eye.
Okay, so that's basically the side of the eye. Is it taken
that's
from
the
above?
inside.
Or...
Yeah, that's the inside of the eye, behind the inside of the eye.
And then we've got this section here.
So that is the actual optic nerve behind it.
And there's something in that. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can zoom in on this. Yeah, so...
Yep.
And see if we can actually go up. Okay, so that's the top part.
Yep.
Right? Which, is there anything there that you can wish to describe in detail?
No, if you go down this...
It's a very good picture for somebody who just makes a quick snap.
Yeah, well, I was sat there. He had to go and get someone to come and have a look. So when he was out the room, I snapped it quick. If you go down a little bit more, I can explain. There's a little box.
So
underneath
let's just, while we're here, we can... So we are talking about this red...
That's it, yeah.
And that's blood. That area there
yeah,
is
that's
blood.
bleeding behind the eye.
Okay, and that's
not
good.
No, that's not good. You're not supposed to have anything there. So I was having headaches again, and I went to see my optometrist, who sent me swiftly to the hospital. And the year before, they found that nodule next to the optic nerve.
So this is your optic nerve.
Yeah, and they said...
And that bit there shouldn't be there.
No, they said that sometimes they get lumps behind the eye, and they're like calcium deposits or build-ups. They don't know what that is, and you can clearly see there's a piece missing.
Now a piece missing is where?
There, where the arrow is there. So you can clearly see there's a piece missing. And
we'll go as far as we can here before it pixelizes,
but yeah, you can clearly see it.
That little bit there is missing. And that's the rest of the nerve.
The optic nerve. So it's stripped away like wire. And
that's a lot of debris or what? Or
yeah. So they're not quite sure.
And then this is...
That's not supposed to be there by the optic nerve. So you have an optic nerve, and that goes along to the back of the eye into the lens. And the way he explained it to me is there's like a nut-sized lump behind in my optic nerve. And there's 3 lumps, like round little pods inside that. Normally they thought it's calcium build-up deposits, and they said no, it's not. They don't have a clue what it is. They said it's unknown, but whatever.
Which eye is this?
Behind my left eye.
Okay, your left eye.
Yeah, and at the moment, he said there's a possibility it can push against the back of the lens behind my eye, and I could go blind. But he said, at the moment, whatever it is moving forward up my optic nerve towards the back of my eye. I think he said extruding was the word he used. Like when you squeeze toothpaste, it moves up the eye. So
how many microns or meters are we dealing with?
I have no idea, but it's
to
quite...
get a size, let's sort of get an idea of size here.
I have no idea, but it's a good quarter the size of my eyeball. So, but they can't remove it. It's too far back.
Yeah, that's hidden within the brain tissue.
Yes.
Brain tissue is a good thing to keep all in one bit. You don't
Yeah.
want to remove bits of it.
So they can't remove. They can't remove it. And if it gets bigger or moves forward, I could go blind. They said there is. I've got a little bit of room behind my eye for it to do that. But what's interesting is with this image. A few years ago, not that long ago, within the last 5 years, I woke up one morning. I was at my mum's house, staying at my mum's house, looking after my mum with my partner. And I woke up about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and I could see numbers going across my left eye. And as the numbers were going across, there was about 15 numbers that went across, and it got smaller and smaller and smaller till they went down to like 2 or 3 digits. And there was a little number thing on the side. But it was just on my left eye, so I was blinking. I could see perfectly out of my right eye. I could see out of my left eye, but there was all these numbers shooting across for about a minute, maybe two. And as I looked around the room, on my bedroom, I could see all these numbers like on the wall. But so as my eye moved, all these numbers moved, and then it just dissipated or stopped. I've never had it before in my life, and I never had it after. So that's one thing that happened, but that was in the same eye.
And that's the only visual. Is that the only visual disruption that you've seen?
Yes. It's yeah, that's the only visual disruption that I've seen. When you wake up, you blink a few times, but I actually stood up, went to walk around the room.
That's normal. Yeah.
Yeah, went to stand up, walk around the room, and the numbers like followed me with my left eye. I was blinking and blinking and blinking, so there you have it. So that's that image.
So how long has this been going on for?
The image thing's been about 8 to 10 years with my eye. Probably a little less, probably about 8 years, about 8 to 10 years, about that span that I know of. I only knew that I had that because I was having headaches and nosebleeds, and they sent me to the hospital. I went to the opticians who saw it first, and then they sent me to the hospital, and I had eye scans and X-rays and things like that.
Now, are you aware of something that they did in UCAS? UCAS was the European Committee Against Covert Harassment. There's two types of basic harassment. There's a thing called V2K, that's voice to skull, not the Millennium Bug thing, and another one is synthetic eyes. They put things in the eye for seeing what you see and things like that. That's part of known covert harassment, and it's part of what you might describe as a military-industrial complex harassment of citizens, put in a genre. Dr. Robert Duncan has done work on this on Project Soulcatcher, stuff like that. This is just to sort of put it in a non-alien box, so to speak. But we know that the aliens and the relevant industrial complexes are talking to each other, so to speak.
Well, I don't know if there's anything alien about it, but it was numbers. It was like about 12 to 15 numbers, and it went across, and they were flickering across, and they just seemed to get smaller and smaller and smaller until there's like 2 or 3 digits, and then it disappeared, and there was like 2 or 3 numbers on the side, 4 numbers on the side, 3 numbers, I think, yeah.
Did those numbers have any significance or alphanumeric
Just
labeling
looked like
or display?
some type of huge dial on my eye. It just looked like the numbers were coming across from left to right, and then they were getting smaller as they were going down, and that was it.
And you've heard nothing since?
Nothing about that, no.
Now,
Nothing.
when did you have those numbers? Did you have them before you drew attention to this, or after you drew attention with the doctor?
Probably after, actually. It was a few years after. It wasn't that long ago, so it was after 2017, 2018.
What made you go to the doctor about your eye in the first place?
I was having headaches.
Right, you have
headaches and nosebleeds, and he said go and get your eyes checked. So I went to the opticians at Bitton, Southampton, Bitton High Street, who found the lump and sent me straight to, wrote a letter to my GP, and my GP sent me to eye casualty, and they took me into the eye unit there, and for 2 years, just over 2.5 years, I was a regular visit every few weeks to the eye unit.
And when they did the scans, did they discover anything else? A brain scan, any other bleeds or tumors or any kind of thing?
No, they said that they thought there was a gap in the back of my brain where there's supposed to be fluid, and there wasn't any.
Well,
But
we've certainly have had a gap in the back of somebody else's brain this morning, called an alarm clock.
but yeah, so apart from that, no. They gave me some stuff. I was having some real severe, terrible headaches at the time, awful headaches, and they gave me some medication for that, and it seemed to like dissipate over about a period of a year. And then they like regularly, I can come and go when I go. If I have any problems, I go up to the optometrist, and they
Now,
take me.
before all this, okay, we've edged on your pictures, but you've been having strange contact since the age of 6 or something. Is that right?
Yeah. So my first contact, well, the first thing that happened to me happened when I was 6 years old. It was again that was like one of the first images we saw before was I was 6 years old, and something woke me up. I was just awake. I was very alert in the middle of the night. Don't know what it was. I just stood there listening, jumped out of bed, had my long pink nightie on. Went to walk into the hallway, and this beam of light just came through the ceiling, straight down through the floor, and a huge face appeared in the light, made of light. And as it shot towards me, I turned around to run back into my bedroom, and it overtook me, and that's the last thing I remember. But
And you're wearing those two little artifacts from ancient times. I mean, do they have a meaning for you? Or do they have a?
no, I think something.
You've got both the same thing.
Yeah, so
both the-
I was lucky enough to meet Giorgio Tsoukalos from Ancient Aliens, and great guy. And there is something. I've also met Eric von Daniken and David Childress Hatter.
David Childress has done some amazing books touring the
Yeah,
world. Absolutely
so
amazing.
but there is something to what they say. I'm not claiming on everything. I'm not saying that, but there's something. When the experiences, they would try to put me back. I think they can't put you back if you're upset or not cooperating. And
Is this what you call hypnosis or something?
yeah, no, it's when you like in the link when you're in the link and they're trying to talk to you. When they're trying to
Explain the
communicate.
link, because that's on part 1.
So the link is like it's like a Wi-Fi phone call, but you're actually inside. Like it's like a just say it's like an imaginary link, a Wi-Fi in a room. You can't see it, but you know it's there and it works. Now, just imagine being inside that when someone's sending a message, they can hear you listening. And when I'm in the link, you stop seeing through your eyes, and you link to them, and I can hear. Before they had to lean over me. The one that knows me, when they lean over you like that, it's because they want to see if you can.
Now, again, for
communicate
those
with
who
them.
haven't seen part 1, who is they? What is they? What are
So I don't know. I don't know what they're called. I don't know any names or anything like that. They're just like little. People call them grey, but they're not. They're like little white glowy beings. They're about 3 foot tall, and the one that knows me is about 4 foot tall. And he's like a glowy white skin, and when he's close to me, within say about 8 feet, I can link to him straight away, no problem. I think that's not something I realised overnight. I think that's something that took me a few years, if not after. It wasn't really till recounting my story with David Hodgren when my account was documented that you sit there and put the pieces together. Normally, abductees don't want to think about it, or there's something stuck in your head. You know what you've seen and it's next to you, but when you're trying to put things behind you and move on, I didn't really ever want to come forward. It was only because me and my partner were getting really ill that I came forward for help. But when you're in the link, I can hear one of them. So he's only got to be very close to me and I can link to him automatically. Now, I can hear maybe about up to 8 or 10 of them. After that, it's too quick. When there's like 8 or 16 of them in the room and they're talking, it's so fast. It's incomprehensible. I can't understand it. I certainly can't keep up with it. I've got no, and it just goes really fuzzy, and I can start seeing back at my eyes because it's too much. I can't. It's like an overload. I can't understand what they're saying. But when there's like a few of them talking together, or to each other or near me, I can understand what they're saying. But they can block you from listening. So whether that's done as a security measure, or whether that's done it's done to stop you either learning information or to stop them hearing you. I'm not quite sure what the reference
I
is.
suppose it's better than putting your hand over the phone.
Yeah, yeah. When they're experimenting on you or they're doing a test on you, they don't like the fact that you can do it then. And I think whatever they use to subdue you, it's like a frequency. It's a light and a frequency, like with a pheromone in it. That's what they use to subdue you, and that's what I've learned. And when they subdue, whatever it is they use doesn't really seem to work on me properly. And once you're out of the light, once you're in the light, you've got no chance. But if you're out of the light a little bit, or it's not fully made contact with you, I think you're still incapacitated, but you can't move. But when your eyes are open, and like I'm talking to you now, and I can move about, when you're taken, you can't move about. You can only just look forward. So when you're looking forwards, you can see everything in front of you, maybe a little bit to the side, but you can't see anything behind you or look up and down. You just look in front of you.
Well, you described that in some of these pictures which we're about to see.
Yeah.
So you were talking about Ancient Aliens, the so-called Ancient Aliens TV series, but this particular object, was it just an anecdote, or did it have any significance to you yourself?
So yeah, when I was in the link, they can when you're looking, they ask you to look at something. Just say it looked like a TV screen, it looked like a cartoon board, and it's like look at the top left, and I went to look at the top left, and it's like you zoom into the picture, and when I was in the picture, they put me in this bubble, and it goes, you can go anywhere in it, anywhere in the history or anywhere they want to show you. And they took me back to this place. It wasn't Earth. It was a different world. And I must have asked, where do we come from? But you don't verbally speak to them. It must be, it's like a thought or an image or a scent in your head, and they recognise it as you asking a question. And they showed me that this wasn't our world. That we're here because of something they did. They did something to the planet we originally came from or lived on. They like volcanism. Is that the right word?
As in Star Trek Vulcan?
No, perhaps I'm using the wrong
Or
word.
volcanoes?
Volcanoes, that's it. So they're interested in volcanoes, and they're drawn to it, or they use the energy with it. They were interested in it on this planet, and when they took me there, they showed me underwater. They took me in over the land. I saw an animal. And it took me down over the ridge and into the water, and there was other bubbles under the water with a little. They weren't white.
You mentioned this thing called bubble. What do you mean by the bubble?
So when they want to take you somewhere or show you something, they put you in what I perceive to be a bubble. It's like it's like an invisible bubble, but you're inside a bubble. The closest thing is like. You either see the adverts, or you can go to like some of these parties and they put you inside this big plastic thing and push you down a hill. It's probably about the size of one of them, I suppose. I've never been in one. But when they put you in this bubble, it's like you don't know, you can't breathe, so you're not sure if you're breathing in there. It's like when you're taken, you can just, it's like a camera's recording. You can't feel, hear, breathe or anything. You're just there. It's the same when you're in this bubble. And they put you in it to take you places or show you things. I'm not sure if it's a mode of transport, whether you go up and down, sideways, forwards and back, or if you stay in the same moment in time. I don't know. But when I was in one of these bubbles once, they told me that they couldn't move through black space. So I don't know what that was.
That's interesting.
Yeah, they were taking me...
Well, this is in the images, so I think. Do you want to get on with the images?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
So we'll go to. We'll just take them as they come, as they come in alphabetical order with the scan. So explain this.
So one of the times, one of the longest times they took me for was this one. And when I woke up, I was on a bench, naked, but I had this like rag over me. Couldn't move. I was set up at like a 30-degree angle. And up to this point, I don't think I've ever been allowed to, walk around or move. But they agreed for me to get up. Now, they never told me what it was going to be. There was loads of the little ones there watching. They were to my left, and they were probably good 10, 12 feet away from me. And they were like, there was loads and loads of them there to the left. And just behind me to the right was the one that knows me. He said that if I...
You talking about his left or your left?
My left. So the ones that, the little ones, they were all on the left, and the one that knows me was behind me on the right. And so I was where that little star was at the bottom.
Yeah, okay, that's your
No, the other one,
perspective.
the other star.
Or the other star.
That's it. I was there. Now I was allowed to get up, and I walked to the end of this bench where I was, and I was about 20 feet back from the pods at this time, and I was just stood there. I felt drugged. I felt
So
like a...
was the being there first?
No. I got up and I walked. It was very thick. I felt very like a bitter taste in my chest, and I had an urge to walk forwards very slowly. I felt drugged. As I walked slowly forwards, I see things started to get a bit brighter. My vision was a lot better, and it was still dim. And then all of a sudden, I saw hundreds of these black pods everywhere. They were just like in rows of threes. And as I got a little bit closer, I saw this thing move. It was very quick. I didn't know what it was at first. It was just about the same height, just a little bit taller than the pods. And it stopped and then it ran forwards again. And it was a little white being.
And that's where it came. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. That's where I first noticed him. And then he ran. It was so quick. These things are so quick. He ran forwards. And I just got like an aura or sense. So when you're in their Wi-Fi, you can feel and hear what they're saying. Now they don't have feelings like us, but I could feel he saw me as a direct threat. He wasn't angry. He just did not want me there. He saw me perceived me as a threat. He wanted me away from the pods. He didn't want me there at all. And I think he was protecting the pods. He was protecting the pods from me. That was very clear. He was not happy. It was like an angry feeling, but he wasn't in the link. He did not want me there. And then the one next to me, the one that knows me, he was behind me to my right and said he ordered him to stand back. This thing didn't want to move. He wasn't confronting me. He was determined to keep me away. And it was definitely an experiment. They wanted to see what was going to happen. So he ordered the little one to move aside. So the little one moved aside. He wasn't happy. And as I stepped forward again, it was like slow movements. I stepped forward again and stepped forward again. And I saw these black pods are about 2 feet off the floor, the little podium. They look like black glass. So in the 60s and 70s, he used to have these coffee cups that look like a smoky black glass. You could see through them, but when you put liquid in, like coffee or tea, they went black. And it looked like that. So I'm not sure if it was metal or glass, but it looked like black obsidian glass or black glass, very shiny. And I stopped and I couldn't hear, I couldn't hear nothing. And then I think he realised there was a conversation going on between the one that knows me and the others.
But it's just to illustrate. This is a glass, dark glass jar.
Okay.
So would that be?
Yeah, I could tell him it was darker than this.
But is it?
It's close. So this colour here, this was like the colour you could see.
So it's a darkened glass?
Yeah, so Miles has just given me this. So just to show you, the black glass in the shade, so I've put my hand behind it, this is the colour. It looked, you couldn't really tell it was glass. It looked like black glass, so blacker than this, but the colour inside it looked like this. It didn't look like this. It looked like this. this blackness. Now, I couldn't tell that anything was in there. It looked exactly like this black. It wasn't until I got right next to it, and literally I was stood here, and I could see it's still black like that. And there was a decision being made, and all I can remember, the one that knows me saying, I thought, well, who was he talking to? Then I realised I could hear the others pushing against the link. They were all listening, and he was trying to tell them I was inquisitive. And so I was allowed to move my hand up, and as I moved my hand up, I touched the pod. Like, I put my hand on top, and as I put my hand on top, I moved slightly forward, and I could see down into this pod, and there was a red light. When I saw this red light in there, I realised that you could see there's a baby. This baby was in there, but as I'm touching this jar now, before I couldn't feel cold in that or hot. I couldn't feel anything, but when I was walking about, it's hard to explain. I put my hand on and actually felt cold, and the second it felt cold, I didn't need to say anything. They felt like they thought I was worried, and he was trying to reassure me very quickly that he's like, no, the light inside is keeping the babies warm, because I thought that, and they really thought I was bothered by the fact that this jar was cold and it should have been hot. So this pod, it was this colour black, and there was a red light in there, and there was a baby in there about 8 months along.
So is in relative size to what the pods were, how big is that jar?
Oh God, this is like a tiny piece. The jars was probably about at least a good 2 feet wide, like that, because my hand was on top like that.
Okay.
And a good foot and a half wide, and at least 2 foot long, and with a little podium. Podium was about that big. And I'd done a draw. You could see it on the drawings.
Yeah, okay.
But I could see little as I looked over like that, as my hand was on top, because I couldn't move my eyes anywhere else. I could only kind of look where my eyes were looking. I could see these little tubes at the bottom that just looked to be 3, and in rows of 3 that went down and connected. And each pod was like in rows of 3. And as the second I touched it, after second I touched it, physically touched it, I stopped hearing the link. I could no longer hear the one that was in the link. I could no longer be in like the ship's link or the link that was in there, because there's different links or different frequencies, if you want, on different ships, and I couldn't hear him talking. All of a sudden, the second I touched it, I heard thousands and hundreds of thousands of little girls' voices. They're like tiny little pipsqueaks, like tiny little squeaks, like spikes. You could hear them, and they were all talking to each other. They were all jabbering away. And I'm not sure if they could hear me listening to them, but I could hear every single one of them. And I'm not sure how long my hand was on there or how long I was in the link. I don't remember talking to any of them individually. All I remember, the second I thought, they're only breeding females. I'm not quite sure what happened, whether they physically took my hand off to break the link or they pulled me back to get on with whatever was next. But within a second or two, I was away from the pods. My hand was down. He was explaining the babies are fine, they're cold. And then the next thought I had was, they're only breeding females. In that second, the whatever defences was keeping them back out of my brain, out of this link, had stopped, and they all rushed in like thousands and hundreds of ants, like all rushed in my head, and it was turning. I could feel him turning everything over in my mind, looking to. They didn't know how I knew that they were all female. That really frightened him. I didn't know how they were all female. I didn't know, and they were. I don't think they were very happy because they couldn't find out how. I don't think they knew that I knew, or they knew that the others didn't know that they were all female. So that they were very perturbed by that. They weren't happy about that at all, and it was just like ants, metal ants rushing in your head, turning everything over. It wasn't a pleasant experience, and within a couple of seconds after that, I think it must have been a couple of seconds, I saw this red flash go underneath the floor. Now, whether that was to get my attention to move or to get me back into the link, because I obviously seen out my eyes, I wasn't no longer in the link. I kind of followed this red light and I stopped. I think it was to the right of the pods, and I just stopped. And the next thing, I was obviously back in the link. And the one that knows me was showing me images, Now, what they were doing to me while they were showing the images, I don't know. But the images he showed me were of this energy wave, and it had like a light with an energy wave on it, and it went up into this box, zigzagged down, went through, and the wave.
Oh well, that's in one of the other photographs. So let's move on.
They showed me that.
So let's bring that out. Windows, wonderful windows. Okay, this is a little bit more on that same thing. Is that?
So that's my view from on top. When I touched it, so they look black from a distance, and it wasn't until I got closer that you couldn't see any of the wires out the back until you actually leaned over it. You couldn't see any of that. It wasn't wires; it was like tubes, and they were about 2 feet wide. The baby was in there, like curled up, and it looked like it was filled with fluid. And he said the red light was keeping the babies warm. It looked like a red light you'd see in a fish tank. But yeah.
So this is the sort of stand that holds them?
Well, they look like they were stood on that podium from the front.
Is that you standing there holding? Or what
No, that's what was coming out the back. That's what I had a glimpse of what was out the back.
You've got 1, 2 and 3 there.
3 different... It looked to be, from my angle, from where I could see, that when I put my hand over and looked down, it looked like 3 tubes, and they went into the podium and went down into the floor. And every one must have had them, but it looked black. When I walked up to it, it wasn't until I touched it I could see the baby. I could see the baby, and the red light was inside, dim red light glowing. Okay,
this is another part of the whole thing.
Yeah, so this particular picture there, you'll see. So I'll there's a few things going on there. Just to the left of the picture, all the stars.
Do you want me to go into one particular part of this picture?
Yeah, no. So just on the left of the picture, where the stars are.
Yeah.
Those stars represent the little beings. There was loads of little beings that I could see.
That's just your drawing style. It's not that they're actually stars.
Yeah, that's my drawing. It's just I couldn't be bothered to draw so many, and I'm not a very great drawer.
Well, you're doing a really good job here.
So when I came round, I was on the bed. I was on the bed naked, and
this is the bed here.
Yeah, it was like a bench, metal bench, and no, I don't like being laid down. If I agreed to behave, they sit me up. So I agreed to behave, and they sat me up. So after I went physically down and touched the pods, and they showed me the energy thing. They then yanked me like a dog on a chain back to the bed. Within a couple of seconds or a second, I was back on that bed flat. And they explained.
Now, is this after your previous experience?
This was the same experience, but a bit later on. It was a part of. It was all the same part of the. So when I woke up, I saw the pods. I was allowed off the bed, off the thing. I walked down, touched the pods, and then they yanked me back onto that bench. And that's at the point where you see that drawing. When I was on the bench, the one that knows me was to my right, and the others were to the left, far left. And he said I would not be allowed to move for this bit, but if I agreed to behave, they would sit me up. So I agreed to behave. They sat me up, and that's when I noticed I had that rag on. And then
you're talking about this? Is this?
Yeah. It's like a rag. It was like a it was maybe a gown, or it just covered me, but I was naked and this rag was just on top of me or over me.
A little bit like hospital.
Yeah, like a hospital gown kind of thing. And the one that knows me was to my right, but he stood back. And in picture 1, we see at the bottom. Now, what happened then was as he stood back and I'm sat up, the one that did not want me there, the first one.
You're referring to this?
Yeah. The one that did not want me there, he's the one that was very angry. He bought he was holding this thing out in front of him at a weird angle, kind of like that. And it was wrapped up in a similar rag to what was on top of me. But he was holding it kind of like that. It was a weird way he was holding it, and it looked like a bundle. And all of a sudden he stopped. He didn't want to link with me. He did not want to be with me. And he unwrapped this rag, like this blanket thing down. He pulled it down. And it was a baby. And the second I looked at this baby, it must have took me a second. I don't think I freaked out at first, but I think I was mentally freaking out. I couldn't move. This baby had lots of thick black hair. It was pink, and it was me. It was me as a baby. The baby was bright pink and had loads of black hair. And she looked like me. She just looked like me. He had her wrapped up in this blanket, and I freaked out, I think. As I freaked out, I was yanked back flat on the bed within half a millisecond. It was like, I was yanked back down, definitely under control. They were definitely controlling me. They were subduing me. They were like, I was not pressed down onto the bench, but I was stuck flat, couldn't move at all. And I'm not sure how long I was there for. That thing had took the baby within a split second. And the next thing I know, the one that knows me comes over and it says, I didn't quite know how long I was there, what had happened. And it was not like, what have you done? I think there's so many things going on. And he said, I said, what's happened? What have you done? And he's like, the baby wants to meet you. It needs to bond with you. And you can't think like, well, why does it want to bond with me? Yes,
is this subsequent or afterwards?
Yeah, so if you go to the picture, if you zoom out a little bit and go down to the bottom left a little slightly, you'll see picture, keep going. That picture 2. So the one next to me at the bed, right at the bottom of the screen there. That's the one. So if you click down past the arrow.
Let's get...
There, where your arrow is now.
Okay.
Yep. So when I was there, I had to agree to behave. He said, the baby wants to behave. Yep, I had to agree to behave. What I perceive that is, don't move, don't make any movements, that kind of thing. They perceive your movement or a thought, or it's not really a thought, your behaviour or your emotion. They think your emotion is a behaviour, and I had to agree to behave. And if I agreed to behave, I would be sat up again, but I would not be allowed to move under any circumstance.
Actually, have you seen the film Michael Myers, the Spy Who Loved Me, and all that series?
Oh, vaguely. I think I saw a film or something.
Yeah, it was Michael Myers he made it with Doctor. It's a piss take of James Bond, but he uses that term, behave. It's just the way you say it seems that maybe there's some kind of programming in that film anyway. Okay.
Yeah, it's like I had to agree. For them to sit me up, I have to agree to behave. So I agreed to behave, I suggest.
Now, did they say behave or comply?
Behave. I had to agree to behave. If I agreed to behave, they'd sit me up. And I don't like being laid down. I hate it. And if I agree
Why do you hate it?
I don't know. I just don't like being laid down. I don't like it at all. I don't like the dentist. Don't like the hospital. Don't like the doctors. I don't like laying down. I hate it. I don't like it. And I even sleep like with pillows behind me bolstered up. I don't like sleeping laid down. I hate it. I don't know what it is. I don't like it. So he said they'd sit me up, but I had to agree. Couldn't move, so I agreed. And the next thing I know, it all went bright white light for a couple of seconds. And when I got my vision back and I was sat up, but my head was adjusted to that direction. It was like I was in a weird, not weird angle. I was kind of like that. I think my arms were like that, but my head had been turned this way, right over like my shoulder, and between my shoulder and my elbow, and I was turning to the left. So I was like that. Unable to move in any capacity, couldn't even blink my eyes. And the thing that brought the baby to the end of the bed appeared to the left of me again. And as it appeared to the left of me, it came within about 2 feet of me. It did not want to be near me. It did not want to come near me.
Now, what didn't want exactly?
The one, the angry one, in the picture, the angry one that didn't want me near the pods, he brought the baby over again. He was the one that brought it to the end of the bed. And then the little one told me, the one that knows me, said, she wants to meet you. You need to meet the baby. It needs to bond with you. So they brought this thing over. They brought this baby over to about 2 feet away. And again, it was a bundle, but he was holding it like that this time. He was like holding it out in front of him. It looked like a big bundle. He was holding it like that. And then he kind of pulled this rag down again, and she was there. And she looked at me, and I was straight into a link. It was me and her in this link. Nobody else was in there. And I think I was mesmerised or stunned for a couple of seconds. And I think she was taking me in. And then something happened. She said, I've taken a picture. And I said, she had all my memories. That was it. She had all my memories between 8 months and 2 years before. It was hard to tell, but there was like a definite cut-off point. So this baby that looked about 8 months old had all the memories at the time of like a 40-year-old woman. So she had like 40 years of memories in this baby. And
That's your memories then?
all of my memories, all of my life stuff I'd forgotten, all my history in my life was what was in my brain was in her brain. And she didn't have any emotion in her. She was, the outside shell was me, 100% me. It was like a clone of me. She was a clone of me. And the only thing different was her eyes were black, looked like a lens or a black, and she had loads of black hair. She looked very pink, but on the inside she was them. She was them. She had my memories. I want to say kind of devoid of emotion, but she took a picture and with her eyes, and I said, "Can I see?" I said, "Why have you done that?" And she said, "So the others can see." I said, "What do you mean the others?" And I said, "Can you show me?" And the picture she took, she showed me an image in my head of me, like kind of laid there, and I looked terrible. I looked very pink in the face. I looked like I'd been dragged for a head backwards. My hair was a mess. I had this rag on me. It was awful. And but also it has like layers in the pictures, and it was my heart rate, my pheromones, my hormone level I was giving off at the time. It was everything. It was like everything in the air, everything inside my body and outside my body had been recorded in this image. And I said, "Why have you done that?" She said, "So when the others want to know in the link, this image is now in the link forever." She said, "They will know. They'll know you and where you come from and where they've come from. They all want to know where they've come from. So whatever bonding that one got from me is the same experience. So I didn't need to meet thousands of these babies they created for me. They could just meet me in this link. I would be in this link and they would bond with me through this image that held everything."
Well, British Telecom in the late 90s had a thing called Project Soul Catcher. Sounds a little bit like this, but let's move on.
So this was later on after they took me to the ship at Jupiter. I went from there in a bubble. I felt like I was strapped to the front of a rocket. It was so fast. It was me and the one that knew me. And this image is when we were in the bubble, and it felt like we was in this rocket going straight on. And I was being pushed back in this bubble, and you just see flashes, and that was it. And all of a sudden we stopped. But in between that there was a twist, which is what I said earlier. We were just going straight, and all of a sudden it was like a roller coaster maneuver. And I asked what was happening, and he said that they can't fly through black space. And I don't know what black space is, and I don't know what he meant. He just said they can't fly through black space. I don't know what that is. But that image showed, as we stopped and we were looking down, just in front was there's, you see, like a green moss planet. It was a small planet. But it was like a beautiful sea green moss, very dimly lit. It was emitting light.
Like this around there?
Yep. And then we had to do this manoeuvre down and round. And as we went down and round, didn't look completely round because David Hodgson said to me, "Planets round, Tina." I was like, well, this one looked like it had the top chopped off of it.
I know you've mentioned Dave Hodrin. Let's give a big shout out for Dave and the work he does. But all these pictures that you were talking about are on his website. Could you mention that?
Yeah, so David Hodrin was my investigator. I contacted Gary Heseltine initially for help. I only came forward because me and my partner was sick and I wanted help. After like 40, 50 years, you don't want to know. I just wanted help. So I contacted, after speaking to a few people in the field, Gary Heseltine gave me David Hodrin's number. And I thought he's going to think I'm a nut and not want to speak to me. But anyway, I plucked up the courage, phoned and messaged David Hodgerin, and it went on from there. So
Dave Hodgerin is the Birmingham UFO Group.
Yeah, so he's the chairman of Birmingham UFO Group. That's BFOG, Birmingham UFO Group. And he's the lead investigator. He's investigated international and worldwide cases. He's my caseworker.
He's also a bigwig in the International Coalition for Extraterrestrial
and is it ISA?
Research.
Yeah.
ISA.
Yeah, he's the deputy chief. I think Gary Heseltine is the
top dog.
He's the chief.
I think for the UK. I'm not too.
Yeah, for the UK. Yeah. So I learnt a lot from David and Gary and David breaking everything down.
And also just a shout out for the MASH project 12 years ago. Dave was one of the key people there, along with Joanne and David Griffin, and we were doing something a little bit similar, and I was there taking pictures. So this is just to let reference to people for getting contact with these organisations, BUFOG in the UK.
Yeah, so that's one of the main reasons. Another reason was until when you want to come forward, it feels like you've got something stuck. Sometimes when you remember, it doesn't affect you, and when you've been severely affected, you don't realise the trauma inside you, and you need an outlet for it. It needs to come out. It feels like you need to say or do something, and once it's out, you find that feeling has left you. But abductees don't have a recourse. So this is my little rant. Abductees.
Yeah, go for it. Because this is very important.
My view and my opinion is that abductees don't get supported. There is no recourse for abductees. People go on about disclosure projects and this and this. Abductees are the disclosure project. Abductees have made contact. These beings that are taking human beings, any which way you look at it, taking a being and communicating with it, apart from being abduction, is contact. These beings are speaking to abductees. They're testing abductees. Now, when they're taking us, they're coming into our world unannounced, uninvited, certainly by me. They could be polluting our airspace. We don't know that. They could be bringing in bacteria and radiation. Never mind global warming and the holes it's punching into our ozone and atmosphere. They're then coming into your local airspace, invading your airspace. Then they invade your home under the guise of night without your permission and take you as a child. Now, if they were all brightness, light and sweet and wanted to make communications, they wouldn't abduct children in the night, take them and perform experiments on them and put them back covertly. Now,
well, I'm going to say something about this right now, but if you contact the Ministry of Defence, Nick Pope, when he was running the Development Department, said UFOs are of no defence significance. What do you think about that attitude for the Ministry of Defence?
Well, I think that's totally wrong. Not only are they put in... we pay a thing called tax here in Britain, and I'm sure people around the world pay their own tax.
Well, as we know, Tina, it's well spent on our roads and infrastructure and not given away to foreign countries for dubious wars.
Well, it's not about dubious wars. This is about protection of the citizens that pay tax. If you didn't have citizens to pay money, you wouldn't have tax. Nobody's defending me. Nobody's
Seems a weird
protecting
concept that
me.
a government would protect its citizens.
I'm not a protected citizen. I'm not even a protected citizen of this planet. These things are coming in unimpeded in our airspace, unimpeded into my home. Now, if I was a soldier, you just imagine me as a 6-year-old. Now, just take my nightie off me and just put a uniform on me. I'm now a soldier that comes forward and says, I've been taken under the guise of night from my home by an unknown force that took me, cut me open, had made experiments on me, took me places, frightened me to death. I thought I was going to die, tortured me, then dropped me off and put me back. Now, I would have the UN Council, I would have half the world's military, my military, I would be questioned, I'll be interviewed, I'll be given health care, I'll be given mental health care, I'll be given compensation, I will be helped in every single way. Most importantly, there would be someone there fighting for justice. Somebody there wanting to track down these culprits, these people that are responsible for doing this. And they would be held to justice. They would then be taken by the UN, which would scour every single country in the world looking for them, under the Geneva Convention, and they would be hauled up in Brussels. They would be taken to The Hague and held accountable. Why is this not happening?
Well, Tina, I think you've just sort of said it all there. And you've said it with a very good why isn't it happening? What do you think, because it isn't happening, what do you think, in your view?
Well, I think the government has made a mistake for far too long. I mean, I can understand they don't come forward for what they keep saying, security reasons. Now, it's only security reasons because if they don't believe the public, then there's not a really security threat, is there? But when doctors come forward, admirals, military people, seamen, um, islanders. Now, you take people in the Amazon forest, nobody's protecting them. You have people out there that are abducted and die from this. Nobody's protecting them. Nobody's burying them. Nobody's helping their families. Nobody's giving them medical treatment. They don't have the internet and they've got no one to report it to. There is no recourse for abductees and there's no one helping them. And now the government can find billions of pounds, say, yes, the UFOs are real. Well, abductees have been telling you that for hundreds of years. Abduction is a real phenomenon. Now that they know that, they can help military men. Military men get they can get radiation treatment. They get free dental, and they get it straight away. They're believed. They make a report. Someone's speaking to there. Someone's monitoring. Why can they not just do that for people that are abducted? Abductees hold so much more information than the military ever could. They're a resource of contact because they have been contacted. Abductees are disclosure because these things are talking to us.
Have you heard of a lady called Hilary Porter?
No.
Well, she witnessed an event with Marconi Defence Systems in 1974 in Farnborough, where ETs just walked in, did what they did, carte blanche, and saw all the secret material. And that's down at Farnborough. Some people call it Britain's Area 51, but this is a good rant. Do you want to say anything more?
Well, it's so... I'm not against the environment people. I'm not against our military. But these things need to be held accountable. If I went onto a military base, I would be arrested. And if I went onto a military base at night time, I would be arrested for, say, terrorism. Now, these things not only come into our airspace, which they're neglecting to do anything about. Maybe they can't. Maybe that's something that needs addressing. The public would fully support that. If you're keeping your citizens safe and you have a legitimate reason, this is a legitimate reason, then there should be no issue. Whether they've covered it up for thousands or hundreds of years, that's not a problem. Come forward, say, we've made a mistake, but from now on, we will help humans. We'll help protect mankind. If you want space exploration, you want to take mankind further, what's the point in keeping mankind and taking mankind further when you can't look after mankind here? I mean, the people say we're so far away from alien life. We're not. People say they're walking among us. Are they? I don't know. But all I know is, would you want to come to a planet where we pollute it? We don't protect our people. We kill things, rape things, poison things, kill the wildlife, burn the forests. Would you want to go and see them? And more importantly, would you want us to go and visit you? No, you wouldn't. So there is another issue there. And if they are dodging our military, impeding our airspace and our lives, then surely this deserves more accreditation or more disclosure to the public, because it's already happened, than what's going on today.
What if you find out that they have been involved with these different ETs and been doing deals with them and business deals and contracts and all sorts of things like that? What would you feel about that?
I mean, there's two sides to every coin. So you have the basic things is people, all these bright light and people think you're negative, you hate aliens and this. Well, one, they obviously believe in aliens, and a belief is a religious act. Knowing is a different act. So you need to start there, knowing this is going on. Now, if it is going on, people will say, and it is going on, then surely it doesn't matter what has been decided. Contact's made somewhere. We all know that. It's made, if it's made somewhere and it's progressed to the fact that they're taking, and I've seen hundreds of people up there, they've taken hundreds of people that I've seen, so I cannot be the only one. They're making contact. They're doing things to us. Well, that's fair enough. It's just like saying people on the Isle of Wight taking people from the mainland Britain and doing stuff. Well, unless you go over there and have a look, you're not going to know. Yes, the government know about it, the passenger ferries know about it, the sea company knows about it, but the military's done nothing. They should be doing something. They need to say, hold their hands up, say, okay, one-time offer, unimpeded, with no presidential orders or no prime ministers, no recall, no kickback. This has happened. This is the only way we can control it. Yes, we've kept it from the public. Well, the public already knows that. It's gone beyond that. You can't contain a can of worms that's burst. And this thing's bursting like a leaky ship. People, genuine people like me and my partner and millions of other people out there that need help. If you have to have hysterectomy, if you have nosebleeds, you're bleeding from everywhere in your body, you wake up in pain, your teeth are crumbling, your hair's falling out, you have burn marks on your body, you have holes in your body, you need medical attention. And it's not getting any better the older you get. It just gets worse with age. So something needs to be done.
Well, bloody good show, Tina. That's all in one cup of coffee at some ungodly hour like 8:30 in the morning. We'll have to do more of these things at this time of the day. Well, we've got more of these. We've done a few of these things. These pictures. Let's get through these. Okay, we've already talked about that, about fluidic space or whatever. Is that right?
Yep.
So, bloody good show there. And that's one of the things Hilary Porter mentioned about how the. I'll get on to another one. This is Hilary Porter is a fellow researcher, and she did a whole lot of stuff on how Marconi Defence Systems in Farnborough was compromised by ETs in 1974. Okay, this is about one of your implants. Now, we did cover this in part one. Do you want to just go through this?
So, after one of these episodes where I woke up and there was a bright white flash in the bedroom, I woke up that morning and I had a terrible stinging pain in my bottom. And it just got worse throughout the day. It felt like I'd been stung by a wasp or bee right on my bottom, and it was horrendous. It's always on the weekend when you can't get a doctor's appointment, and it was coming up. By the time my husband came home, it was getting late in the day, and he came home. I'm like, you need to have a look. I said, it's really hurting me. So we agreed to have a look. Went upstairs, he had a look, and he said, I can't see anything. There's no scars on your bottom. He said, there's no marks. There's nothing where a bee would sting you and you'd see, or a wasp would leave a little tail in there. He said, there's no sting, no marks. So I got his finger and put it on top of the lump. I could feel it was sore as how. He said, I can feel that. It's a round lump. He said, I can feel it under the skin. I said, you need to get it out. He's like, no, you need to see a doctor. You need to see a medical person. I said, I can't take it. This stinging is hurting me. So after a little while of coercing him with a pair of nail clippers, like the stainless steel clippers.
Well, they're made of stainless steel. They're very, very
very
sharp,
sturdy,
and
a
very
pair
strong.
of tweezers. He managed to cut a whole tiny nick in my bottom, which stung, and he was pulling. I could feel him pulling, and it was stinging, and I could hear him. He said, "Oh, there's this like grey stuff," and he pulled it out. And the second he pulled it out, the stinging stopped. I couldn't care about anything else. The stinging stopped. It was such a relief. And then he said it's like a membrane. He said, and I felt so relieved because it looked like the pain. And turned over, and he had the tweezers, and he'd pulled this. He got the clippers and was cutting. He said, "There's something in here." And as he cut it with the nail clippers and the tweezers, it was a tiny little what looked to be a stainless steel ball. He's like, it's like half the size of a match head. It was perfectly round, and it was like stuck to this grey webbing membrane. And he's like, I don't know how that got in there. There was no scars on your body. He said, and he looked kind of freaked. He got up. He didn't say anything for a couple of seconds. Walked into the bathroom with some tissue, wrapped it up, flushed it away, and he came back in the bedroom and said, we're never talking about this again. And that was it. So that was that.
Okay, this is another one.
So yeah, sorry about that, guys.
No, that's good.
My
okay.
drawing's horrendous. So
no,
what that
your
is,
drawings are just fine. They're giving you a good impression as to what's been going on.
So as you look down, what happened was, they put me in a bubble. Now they were showing me something. When they put you in the bubble, they want you to see something. And I take it that I'm invisible when I'm in this bubble because people or things don't seem to notice that you're there. So I was in this bubble, and I came in through the top corner, of this room. And as I came down into this room, it looked like a white clinical operating room. You know, like the white you'd see in like an operating room or in a kitchen, like a white plastic room. And it had framework around the top, like bars like you see here, like in the studio. And it had framework around the top. And it had like what looked like to be some kind of round cameras or lights or something on it. But you couldn't see no light coming from it. The room was lit, but it was pointing down. And then as I went across, there were like lights or lasers or whatever it was up on the ceiling. And as I came down, I could see it was a buffalo. It was a dead buffalo, and its leg was missing. There you go. And very large buffalo, but there was no blood anywhere. The leg was missing. It looked dead, but I couldn't be sure if it was alive or dead. But I think it was alive, but looked dead. But it had no leg pull thing, and there was no blood anywhere. Completely white room, and at the end of the room, there was windows either side, and the as you'll see there, and then a door. And
that's the door there.
Yeah, yeah, and it was like a
and
push door.
These are the sort of lights and things.
Yeah. They're all the things on the wall, on the ceiling at the top, pointing down.
Yeah.
And the doors didn't move, but I went through the doors. And as I went through the doors, there was no lights. It looked like a concrete installation, something man-made. It wasn't on one of their ships. It looked like something man-made. And there was a very long corridor. And there was a man walking down it. And I had not like a doctor's coat on, but I'm not quite sure what he had on. But he was walking, and he stopped, and I thought, oh Christ, he can see me. And I stopped, but I was still up in the corner of the corridor, and he was walking, and I was just trying to move in the bubble. I couldn't move. I was just trying to look. And as I looked, he turned, and as he turned, I see he had a name badge, and it said David Bue. The name David Bue, David Bue, Bue. And that's what was on his name badge. And as he turned, he slowly walked up the corridor, and then I was yanked back. I just yanked back out. I was yanked in the bubble back out, and that's all I remember. But yeah.
Can you describe anything, any details, colours?
No, it was
types?
grey. There was no windows. It was like a wide corridor, probably about...
Any identification marks, like numbers
No,
or
there's
arrows
no numbers, no
or
nothing.
logos?
It was just grey. It looked like grey cement or concrete. And it was like a very long corridor.
Was it sort of dirty, sort of well-used concrete? That, you know the way concrete
It looked like
goes?
a clean grey concrete. It wasn't dirty. It looked clean.
You know the way concrete ages? And
Yeah,
looks a bit
I couldn't tell you. It would just look like grey concrete or cement. Couldn't really give you an age of it. It looked kind of new. I wouldn't say newish.
What about the lights?
It was very well lit, but I couldn't see any lights because I was up in the ceiling looking down.
But you know the way lights are.
Yeah,
you
you couldn't.
they're
No,
trunking
no.
or any kind of stuff like that. No?
Couldn't tell you. No, I was just up looking down. I was more focused on this bloke in the hallway because they obviously wanted me to show you this for a reason. But I tried looking for David Bue on Facebook, and I come up with a scientist that looks after something to do with badges, but no.
Okay, this is the frequency thing. I think you mentioned it a bit earlier. The red pulse.
Yeah, when I was at the black pods and after I touched the pod, I saw this red light that went underneath the floor, and it came round again in like a cycle.
You got box 1, box 2, and box 3.
So I followed it, and that little to the left, you'll see a thing that looks like a little tennis racket. Well, that's what happens is this red light goes around the ship.
There.
Yeah, and it gets bigger like a pulse, and it gets redder. And what happens is it goes like a wave, like a sound wave. And it goes up into this box, and it has like a carrier wave, another thing with it, like 2 waves, but the one's like a light or sound wave, and it has another wave stuck to it. One goes into the box, so they're one wave, and they go up into the box, and they split into 2. One goes through all 3 boxes like a sound wave, and the other one zigzags down, comes out the bottom, goes in the other one, speeds up, and it slows down, comes out the third one. Goes down, and as it comes up, this other thing joins it. The other 2 join it, and it goes out the box, and that's how it just keeps going around like that. And that's how they reuse it. The 2 waves join together, and it goes out of the box.
What is this wave? Is it?
I don't know. That's what their energy. They showed me that's what they used on that particular ship I was on. It was like a red pulse that went round it, and it goes up into that, and it gets bigger. The more they use it, it's like a pulse, and it goes bigger. And as it goes up, As soon as it goes into the box, the wave separates, and one bit goes down like a wave and goes through it, and the other one zigzags, and it joins at the end of the box and goes back out.
What sort of size is this box?
I don't know. It just showed me in my head. I couldn't
Okay.
tell you.
Okay, right. Well, here we have the
Well,
90-degree. He's looking sideways. He's
so,
looking
but
at you
big-
sideways.
Yeah, so the rim round his head in the middle next to his eye, that I just drew that. That's the side of the, because I'm not very good at drawing.
And
That's
that's
to
three
show
and a
where the-
half feet high.
Yeah, he was the one that knows me. He's about 3.5 feet high, and he has like people say almond. They look like apple. You know, like apple seeds, like apple pips. They look
Yeah.
like that kind of shape. Didn't have a nose and a mouth, very small mouth that did not move, and the neck was in the middle of the head, not like ours. It comes as forward like a stem. Theirs is straight up, very small body, probably about the size of 8 to 10-year-old, very, very thin, and looked like skin was stretched over the bones. And they're bright white light. Their skin is like white. So I'm not sure why they call them greys. It just looks like the light
Well,
reflects
I think there's a
off it.
reason for that. But anyway,
So this is a different one. So this was within the last about 8 years, last 8 to 10 years.
again, that's about 3 feet tall.
Yeah. What happened was I went to bed with my partner. I woke up in the room. I didn't really wake up. I was on the fetal position on the right hand side of the bed. The covers had moved back. I was like that, couldn't move, and my eyes, but like my vision, bulged forward. And as my vision bulged forward, it was like kind of black and muffled and dim, but it like popped forward. And I was laid down. All of a sudden, this thing, this being was literally was 2 feet from me. It was 2 feet away from me. That's how close it was. And it was about the size of an 8 to 10-year-old, very, very thin. And its head looked like I was looking side on. It looked like I was looking at a biscuit tin. So you picked a biscuit tin up and held it sideways and wrapped a bandage around it. That's what it looked like. And as it leant forward, I couldn't quite see the face because I was stuck to the bed. This thing was there, and I'd just see the side of this thick head with the bandage around it. As it leant forward, now it didn't lean forward at the hips where we would like kind of lean forward. It kind of like crouched but leant forward. It was a different movement and slightly below the hips. And as
So
it did,
it was like almost folded.
yeah,
opposed
not
to-
folded, but leant right over, like a door hinge, yeah. And as it did that, I could see the back of its head, and it looked like mottled, like dimples. It looked like mashed potato. The easiest substance I could say looked like someone had squeezed mashed potato on the back of the tin, and it left fingerprints in the
So
back
this
of the
is
head.
the back of the head.
That's
which
the
looks-
back of the head, yeah. I couldn't see the front. And it was actually crouched down looking next to the bed. I had a bedside cabinet there at the time. And it had 3 teddies and a dolly on it with 3 pictures of my huskies. I have Siberian huskies, and I had pictures of my huskies on it, and it was looking at that. As it bent down to step closer, it didn't step, it stopped. It did not turn its face to see me. It did not want to link with me. It realised I was awake. I see the bluey green light coming through the wall, through the bedroom wall to the right corner. I couldn't see where it was emanating from. It was coming through the wall of the floor, like a bluey green light that filled the wall behind it. It was glowing white, and then nothing. It was all right. Everything went bright white light.
And then we got the scary.
So this was my first ever time that I remember being taken. I was 6 years old. I got up in the middle of the night. I was woken up. Not sure what woke me up. I felt very uneasy, very alert. Got out of my bed. I had a pink long P90 on. I took a step forward. Couldn't hear nothing. I took another step forward. I could hear my brothers. Their room was open to the right of me. I had 3 brothers in the room. And then a couple of feet past that was my mum and dad's bedroom. Again, on the right, I could hear them lightly breathing and snoring. The bathroom door was open. The light was on. And I took another step forward to the threshold of the door and took 1 step towards the landing and stopped. The landing was directly in front of me, and all of a sudden, no noise, no nothing. This beam of light shot through from the ceiling straight down through the floor, filled the hallway up, and all of a sudden this face, giant face, filled the whole hallway up. Curly head, face made of light, and it came rushing towards me. As it came rushing towards me, I turned to run in my bedroom, and that's the last thing I remember.
Well, Tina, just a mic check. Yeah.
Hello.
that-
Yep,
yeah.
yep.
Well, Tina, but you can have your cup of tea and shot. We're sort of a little bit of a chat here between breaks.
Okay.
Cup of coffee. We were just talking about the Sheffield incident with Max Briley Burns and big triangular craft seen over Sheffield. But you've seen one over Southampton.
Oh God. So I've seen many things. So where Southampton is a very unique place. So not far from us we have Stonehenge. Not far from where I live is literally the Isle of Wight. In between.
Well, when you say not far from us, you're here in Devizes, and this is you got Stonehenge and Avebury just round the corner, right?
So yeah, the other side of that is Southampton. But where I live, there's a nuclear submarine that is shored up. There is Fawley power plant. There is Marchmont military base. There's an old American base there. Down the road is Portsmouth Dockyard. So, and just up the road from me is Eastleigh Airport. And in between that, I don't work far from there, the other side of Bishop's Waltham and that, is where you have all the crop circles. So within 30 minutes
Excuse me, but we have all the crop circles here in Wiltshire. You don't have them down in Southampton at all. This is scandalous.
Posh part of Hampshire. Anyway, so you get to see planes, military planes, airplanes. I've seen them landing for 50 years and taken off. I've seen helicopters. So I do know an airplane when I see one, and I know hot weather balloons, and I've seen fog and all that. But these things over Southampton, I took a picture of quite a few. I've put some on my Facebook page. But you go out at night, just stick your camera up, and you can see these little white things. They're like they move like little bees across the sky. They don't move like aeroplanes. Aeroplanes have a circular, semicircular pattern, and there's certain flight paths because I used to work at Southampton Airport, so I know the flight paths the aeroplanes take. So they take a flight path, and their lights are low. They fly from down low. They circle around the Isle of Wight, coming in, and they land. So we know the flight pattern. These things fly at high to low altitude within seconds. They're normally like a white, and they can move very, very fast, or when they're high up and they move and they can suddenly stop, change direction, or they split off. And it's weird to see, but it's becoming more frequent. And I'm not the only one saying it. I think lots of people around the world have said they're sighting more people are looking up. It's either because we have technology now and more people are looking at things like that, or it's the fact that there are more of them. And more of them are seen mainly near water. Of course, we live on an island. So yeah, but years ago, we was out in the New Forest playing ball. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning. We had this glowing ball. We were playing football and we were eating jack of potatoes. And we looked up and we saw this thing. It just sort of stopped, and it did like a zigzag thing and just pinged off. It was really high up in the sky, and there was about 12 or 15 of us playing football. And before that, I was still in my mum's back garden just after coming up. It was just winter time. And it was when I smoked. I was in the garden, I think. I was with my niece. She went back in to get a light on. And as she came back out in the garden. Over the back of the fence, between north and northeast in the sky, there's this thing. So if a star looks like a dot, like a matchstick dot, this thing was bigger than my hand, dropped out of the sky, just stopped. It looked like a Christmas tree decoration, and it was flickering like a bluey green red lights on the side of it, like 3 lights that were moving. And it looked like a Christmas ball decoration out in the sky. It was huge. I mean, it was miles and miles away. You could see it, and it had just, in a blink of an eye, it had gone. But yeah, where I live in Hampshire, I'm not the only one. People see things up there. What's this in the sky? What's that in the sky? And my neighbours are out there with binoculars, same as me. You don't even need binoculars. A lot of my pictures, I just take my phone. Look at the sky. You see something. I'm not quick enough. These things can move fast, or they can just stop. Take a picture and you're there. So yeah.
But do you think it was a TR-3B?
What's that?
You don't know what a TR-3B is?
No.
Oh my God.
I know what a regular aeroplane looks like. Because Southampton Airport's only a small airport. Big planes can't land there.
Well, that doesn't stop them making noise.
I've heard a sonic boom or two in my time.
Well, Tina, we've had our coffee break, and we had your little story about the UFOs, or the triangular thing. Do you think that was anything particular? The way that performed?
No, just shut off. They're so quick, these things.
Well, we've got... Let's get back to basis 130, part 2, after the coffee break, and we're talking about these. So explain this.
So this was about 2000, 99, 2000. And I was in my flat. I lived 3 floors up in a masonette flat. So 3 floors up, and then it was like a house on 3 floors up. So I go upstairs, go to bed. Everything's normal. Got a glass panelled door in the bedroom, and it's a huge panoramic view in the bedroom, big bedroom. I was there on my own. House was locked. Went to bed as normal. Now I woke up, and I didn't feel frightened. It was being alert, but I felt like I was very wary. I'm not sure what it was. Really, really wary. Just, I went to move. I couldn't figure out if I'd heard something. I hadn't seen anything, and I was in the bed, so I sat up very quickly. Didn't have any clothes on. And all of a sudden, this thing, it's about 6.5 feet tall, kind of walked, but floated, and it just came into it was black, like some kind of black satin robe. Huge it was. And it just came into the bedroom, through the door, down to about 7 to 9 feet in the room, because I was on a double bed. And as I went in, now I'm quite feisty, and I'm quite a big person. I'm very feisty. It's like fight or flight. I'll probably give it a go. And I'm like, well, what the hell was that? And I thought I was going to die. I tried to grab. I was either going to jump over the bed and grab it and have a go, or I turned quickly. It was a split decision. I turned to grab my bedside lamp, and I was going to hit it over the head. And don't remember nothing after that. That was it. And the next thing I know, it was I woke up flat on the bed, inside my bed with the covers on me. I woke up very frightened, very scared. Nothing was there. Took a couple of seconds to realise I could move. Jumped up, searched the bedroom underneath the bed. I turned every light on in the house. I went in every room, the spare room, the bedroom, under the bed, the bathroom, the hallway cupboard. I went downstairs, the bathroom, the kitchen, the living room, turned all the lights on, and I stood in the hallway and my living room. I don't know how long I stood there, some time, and I was petrified. I was petrified to move. My front door was locked still from the inside. The curtain was still pulled over. Security chain was still pulled over. I was convinced this thing was still in the house. I went in the kitchen, made myself a cup of tea, and I don't know how long I was there. It was like middle of the night. It must have been about 2 o'clock in the morning. And I was there, I don't remember going back to sleep. So I'm not sure if I just sat down in the living room eventually, calmed myself down. I was absolutely petrified.
So what was the result of this? What happened? You got
Nothing.
quite a lot of
That was
description.
it.
That was it.
But what struck me, and I just thought perhaps, you're living on your own, you're up there, sometimes you think, but this thing, I was looking at it as clear as I see you now. When I met Richard Dolan and his wife Tracy Gubbin a few years ago. And
now, who's Richard Dolan? I mean, everybody does, but I mean, where did you meet him in context?
So I know he was I went to an awakening
because
event.
he's been to quite a few of the UK conferences.
David Hodgren said, "Oh, this is on Tina. I think you'd like to go meet a few guys would like to meet you. Come along." So I went, bought a ticket and went along, and met Richard Dolan and his wife Tracy. Now I didn't know who she was, and I give her a flash of my book, and during her speech, she had the exact same drawing as the one I had in my book. She said this apparition thing happened to her and a friend of hers.
Now, you mentioned your book. You didn't mention your book before. Let's talk about your book. Tell me all about your book.
So,
please tell me about your book.
So I'm writing a book about. I didn't really want to. People say, "Oh, you want to make money?" It's probably not going to sell anything, but it's just about my experiences to tell people what has happened to me. I suffer with dyslexia, so it takes me longer, and trying to put things into words. And it's not saying, yes, there was a camera there and I could see it. You got to describe. It wasn't. You don't see cameras. You don't see things, and they're not beds. They're like a bench. So it's trying to put into words and describe it to similar things people would see here. So it's describing something I've never seen before. Try to put it in words to make sense, and that takes time. Well, it takes time for me. I did drawings. Now I have my drawing book, which is I was on about my drawing book, but I'm writing a book called The Bonded: The Truth About Alien Abduction. I want to put pictures in it, but I'm not a clever person and I can't work a computer very well, so I'm having issues.
Well, you could get that done for you, darling.
Yeah, so I'm having issues putting pictures in my book at the
I
moment.
think the main thing is to get the actual text written. And
Yeah,
then you can decide.
So I've done that and I'm tweaking it at the moment. But I'll show Tracy my book of pictures. Actually, I showed her husband, Richard Dolan. And he said, Tracy has the same thing. And I was gobsmacked. He goes, she'd be interested in seeing that. And I was gobsmacked when she had on this screen at the Awakening the same thing that was in my little drawing book that I'd drawn that I'd seen a few years before. So that's very interesting. So I'm not the only one that's had been abducted that has seen this figure thing.
I think Richard's a publisher as well. He's a historian. He's very well known and very famous. And I had a beer or two with him years ago at the Exopolitics conferences run by some fine people up in Leeds. Anyway, we now are back to the pictures. Now, this is something we mentioned at the very start. Now, do you want to go through this in terms of this drawing?
So this relates to my image you saw at the beginning. This is what I did of the drawing. So they had a picture I took. But when I went to see the eye specialist, I'm not sure if he was a PhD doctoral professor, he showed me the image and he was talking me through it. So I drew this as he was talking to me. So the lump you can see there at the bottom, a normal one is at the top, a normal eye and an optic nerve is at the top. What he drew and told me was mine at the bottom. He said this thing is there, has three things in it, like a bolt. They don't know what's in it. They don't know what the three things are, and it's pushing the back of my optic nerve, which was giving me the headaches. And they said it was
just to recap, the picture that we showed at the start was you just managed to grab a photograph using your mobile phone of what they were looking at on screen. So, I mean, that was really a good thing to do because, I mean, have they given you a record of that recording? Or
No. So when you go to, so when they show you at an optometrist and the hospital, they used to put it on screens and computers. Now they don't show you. So when I get the opportunity now, because before I didn't think about it when you go for hospital appointments, evidence. It wasn't until I did come to, well, have you got evidence? Have you got evidence? I thought, if I got on a plane and I was caught smoking, that's evidence. If I say I smoked, that's evidence. If I say I've been abducted, that's not evidence. So people want evidence. And the best evidence an abductee has is medical evidence. All right, I've seen hundreds of people up there.
Have you asked for any scans or anything like that they've done?
So you can't go to a doctor and say, hi, I'm an alien abductee. I think I've been abducted. Could you help me?
Well, you could be locked up for that.
You could be locked up. So again, there's no recourse. This is another issue.
I'm not sire if in 2022, which we're talking now, that you can say that to a doctor. You have to be careful about this.
So I didn't need to.
Things may have changed, but a lot of certain other people, witnesses, when they did do that, they were locked up.
Mm-hmm. So I have other medical evidence. So if you go to David's site on BUFOG, there's a scan after...
David's site on BUFOG, what's that exactly?
Birmingham UFO Group. If you go to abduction cases and look up Southampton case, my whole case file is there. And there's medical evidence on there. I gave David copies of my scans.
Now, he did actually ask you to do these drawings, didn't he?
Yes.
Okay. But what scans are we talking about?
The actual medical, what happens is when you go for a scan, I was vomiting blood.
We're talking about, MRI scans. What type of scans?
So it was a endoscopy, an internal scan. So I was vomiting blood, losing weight, having severe issues. And they come to the point the doctor said, You need to see someone. I'm sending you to a specialist. I saw a professor, Dr. Bryan or Bryce, at Southampton Hospital, and I went in there, and I was awake. They sprayed some stuff down my throat, and told me to bite on it, put a tube in my mouth and into my stomach. I was awake during the whole
Now,
procedure.
did they put it down your throat? Was it?
It was a camera. Yeah, it was a camera. They put it down my throat, and you were awake. And there's a big TV screen like there is now in front of you, and you can actually watch the procedure. You're on your side. There's a few people in the room like holding your side and adjusting the camera, and you bite on it to stop. You bite on this round thing to stop you chewing on the wire. And as they put the camera down, he's there and he's going, oh, that's this, and he's explained to me. And all of a sudden he goes, stop, and he goes, oh my, what is that? And then I start to panic, and they're like, oh, breathe, Tina, breathe. And they're like reassuring you, telling you you're doing well. And he's like, what is that? He said, get biopsies of that, I want some of that, I want that. And he said, I've never seen that black stuff in anybody's stomach. Because everything looked white and pinky in there.
Now, black stuff in stomachs can be an ulcer, can be bleeding.
So, yeah, that's what he says. He goes, we're going to take samples of that and we get it off to the lab, Tina. So he did that, went and he said, I'll see you in a couple of weeks after it's done. And he sent me off. He said, by the look of it, he said, you have a huge scar or marking inside your body. He said, you've had a very long ulcer inside your stomach. We don't know what's caused it. So he gave me a printout on yellow paper, which I still have today. He said, there's your copy and this is our copy. Here's your prescription. Go and get your medicine at the hospital. There's a chemist in the hospital. So I went down, got that, went home. Well, within 3-4 days of me having this, my partner then received his referral. Believe it or not, it was the same doctor. So I'm there 4 days later in the same waiting room.
Okay, without wishing to go into personal things, I mean, your partner, he had an appointment. Was it to do anything to do with alien stuff or this?
Yes,
whatever?
no, it was, yeah. He was taken, the night I saw that one with like the biscuit tin with a mashed potato on the back of the head kind of thing. He was taken and I was taken. I was put back first in the bedroom and he was missing. And the one that thing leant forward and realised I was awake. They hadn't put my partner back. The first thing my partner said that morning when we both woke up was, my throat hurts and my bottom hurts. Since then, his health declined seriously. He lost a few stone in weight within weeks. He was having headaches, nosebleeds, other symptoms, chest pain. And that's the reason I came forward for the abduction field, because I wanted help and I wanted to know if anything would come of this. Is there anyone else experienced this? What was the outcome and what was the help? Where could they get help? So back to I was referred and he was referred. Went to see Professor Bryan again. He said, Tina, what are you doing in the waiting room? I'm not due to see you for another week and a half. I said, you're seeing my partner today. He said, sorry. He said, what, your partner's here? He said, yes. He said, Tina, stay there. And he called my partner through. My partner had the same thing I did done. He had the same issue. He has the same ulcer at the same depth with the same scarring inside his body. So we both have, from the same night, scars inside our body at the same depth that caused us to have the same ulcers. Now that is physical medical evidence witnessed by a professor and his team. The only thing is, he called us back within a day. He said, prepare for the worst and hope for the best. He thought my partner had a liver cancer that had spread and gone undetected because he became so emaciated. It affected my partner more, which is what I wanted to help from the UFO field. As to date, the only one that's ever really tried to help me is David Hodgren. He's reassured me, but there's been no evidence or no medical pointers as to how people have come out the other side.
Sorry, could you run that by me again? Did I miss it? Did you explain that? What happened with the liver cancer?
So, because our enzymes, after you've been abducted, I only found out and put it together after. I'd always go to the hospital because I'd become unwell within a few days, and they'd say that my liver enzymes were off the chart, or that my fat cells wanted to be hormone cells, but my liver enzymes were off the chart. His liver enzymes were off the chart, and we both had blood tests, and he said, your blood tests don't look good. He said, you think you've got liver cancer, we can't find it, but you need to prepare. We don't think you have long. We were terrified. We thought he was going to die within a few days. He kept going back and having scans and x-rays. They discharged him with tablets. He had MRI scanners. He had x-rays. They couldn't determine the source of it. He's still emaciated today and still continues. He's about 8 stone now, so he's put a little bit of weight on.
So what's the time scale here? We're dealing with 2022. When did all this happen?
This happened about 2018, 2019. So he was like 12 stone 2, went down to about 8 stone 7, 8 stone 9, then put some weight on and then lost of it, and he can't really seem to keep weight on. And if you look at him today, he looks thin like a skeleton, and it's horrifying. That's why I came forward for help from the UFO field.
Okay, well, this is part of that sort of help. My IDTV, this is what my skill set is, so this is really important to get this information out. Now, we are running out of time. We don't have a huge amount of time here. So we'll go back to the pictures.
Yep.
And we've really sort of covered that. So do we want to say any more about that?
No.
Okay, so, okay, we've got that. Explain that. This is really back onto the first.
So this is the time they took me in a bubble to the other side of Jupiter. It was a huge ship. It was like a black submarine. It's nothing man-made. Nothing man-made could ever make something that big. It was absolutely monstrous.
Now, yeah, okay, continue.
So inside there, we became underneath the ship and we were in a bubble. And the next thing I know, we were on board this thing. The hallways were very dark, dimly lit. They looked kind of black, and they were probably about 3 or 4 feet wide, if that. But they were huge, long corridors. And I remember the one that knows me was behind me, so he was kind of leading me.
Now, why have you drawn this at 45 degrees? Is there a reason for that?
I don't know. I don't know. That's just the way I drew it.
I mean, this is actually on an A3 sheet, so
Yes.
you've got enough.
Yeah. I don't
Okay.
know why. I just drew it like
I just
that.
wondered why there was any particular angle that you decided.
I don't know.
Okay,
I
continue.
just drew it like that. I don't know why. And I was there, and this a little white one, smaller than him, passed us. He seemed completely unbothered. He looked at me and he went about his work. He walked past me, didn't acknowledge me, didn't do nothing. It just looked at me, very tiny little
Now,
white thing.
is this the one that you're
Yeah.
referring to?
Yeah, very little
And-
white one, about 3
And
feet.
who's the other one?
That's the one that knows me.
Okay, so that's your guide, so to
Yeah.
speak.
So he was kind of controlling me, and he was there, and I stopped. I don't know why I stopped. And I was looking at this wall, what I thought was a wall. And for some reason, I put my right hand up. I just put my hand up, right or left hand. I put my hand up, and the wall started to move, and it was a drawer. This drawer came out. I put my hand up. The drawer came out. And as the drawer came out, this bright white light came out the drawer, and the front of it folded down. And he was like saying, "Look." And as I looked into the light in the drawer, it was like a crystal or plastic drawer liner thing, and had like a hexagonal round, like very small, about the size of a 50p, probably a bit bigger, petri dishes in hundreds of them.
So this is the drawer here, is it?
Yeah, and you're seeing another one with it. No, yeah, that's about the size of the drawers. It was about the second or third one down that opened.
Okay.
And it was bright white light came out of it, and in these petri dishes were my embryos. They were all fertilised. He said when it arrives where it's going, the destination where it's going, like they grow them, but the light's keeping them subdued. The light's keeping them frozen where they are until they get where they go, and then they grow them and hatch them or whatever they do with them. But the light, the journey was so long. It showed me this numbers like a. It showed me like it was numbers and symbols and that, and it was like it's pulled through your head like on a silver cord. It was so quick, but there was so many numbers. I remember zeros, and there was maybe a 2 in there.
Yeah, you mentioned something about that. Now these images aren't necessarily in order, but
Yeah.
I think this is to do with the same incident, isn't it?
Yeah. This is we slowed down. There was a flash. We flashed past something just before Jupiter. Now I've never been in space and seen Jupiter, but I have now. And this thing, it looked like a giant. It was like a mega structure, but it looked like some kind of submarine.
I
It
mean,
was
we're
like
talking about this
flat,
thing,
yeah, yeah, and we come underneath it, and it blocks out the planet. We couldn't see the planet, and we were right underneath it. And then we must have gone onto the ship, but I don't remember how we got onto the ship. But yeah, and then it was from there that I saw the drawers, in the hallway, and the babies, and then it was from there that we went to the planet with the top missing. And that's
This
what's
is the
inside.
drawer.
Yeah. So this was a drawer when it opened, and it had all these little babies in these little round, like things with embryos, and it was like clear fluid. And the front of the drawer came down. He was going, look, and
So what sort of width is this? And I know it was on the previous drawing.
well, the drawer was probably about 2 foot or 1.5 foot in width, but the length of it is probably about 3 feet, 4 feet. There was like a whole drawer like that, and it came out and it came down. So there's probably 4 of those in a row. So probably about 4 feet long, and then probably about 1.5 foot wide. 4 feet wide.
So they're
something like that.
basically,
It was walls of drawers. It looked like a wall, and that came out, and that was probably about an arm's length, good arm's length from fingertips to elbow, and it had hundreds of these little.
were these yours?
Yeah, they were all mine. There's drawers of them. All my embryos.
Now, did they describe anything further about, were all of the drawers yours or what?
No, I just think all the drawers in front of them were mine. That's the only. I didn't know about the rest of them.
But was there any identification? Did they indicate that this was yours and the others weren't? Or how did you know that?
I just went to there. I just put my hand up. Whether he put my hand up, I don't know. But I raised my hand. It wasn't scanned or anything. I raised my hand next to the drawer, and the drawer opened. And that was it. But he was showing me my embryos.
Again, this is another image of the drawer.
Yep. Yeah, that was the front of the drawer.
Excuse me.
The front of it all looked like smooth black. All the wall looked the same. It wasn't until you got close you could tell there were kind of grooves, and the grooves were drawers.
So all of this, although on the drawing it all looks white, actually the whole thing is like charcoal
Yeah, the whole
black.
thing's black. The little.
Is it jet black or?
Yeah, it was jet black. Otherwise, the page would be black. So I drew it
Yeah.
like that. So it was all black, but there was bright white light when the drawer opened. The second the drawer opened, it was like illuminating light that came out the drawer, and it was the light that was keeping these embryos asleep.
The light was keeping them asleep.
Yeah, that's what he said to me. The embryos were being kept asleep, subdued by the light until they got there. So, because they'd be dead. They would be like grown adults, babies, and die before they even got to wherever they were going. And they're like, no, the light is keeping them asleep. We won't do anything until they get there.
Insofar as you're talking some kind of interstellar travel,
Yeah.
for want of a better term.
Yeah. He said they keep the babies asleep till they get there.
Okay.
Now, I had a choice. They didn't give me a choice. It was like a second choice. It was a split decision, stay with them or be put back. If I stayed with them, it would have meant never going home, never seeing Earth, never seeing my family.
I think a few abductees have had that sort of choice.
And then they showed me like the end of the world, and they showed me this vision. And I was in a bubble again, but I was flying above this. It took me a couple of seconds. I was blinded, and I didn't think I was on Earth. And then I realised I was, because I didn't realise the sea looked like diamonds it looked like bright diamonds shining down. And all I could see shining up was like a double hexagon with pointed edges. Hard to describe, like diamond shapes. But it was light reflecting off the water so high up, and I've never seen it from that high up. It looked beautiful. But then I realised we were above something else, and as we were above it, as I looked down, it was a one-piece, huge, long, like missile, had no windows, no markings, no nothing on it. Very huge, long, white missile flying over the ocean, like thousands of miles across the water. And it was just one piece, no marks, no grooves, no nothing. Like one solid piece of white missile.
I mean, that looks like a space shuttle solid rocket booster.
I don't know. And that's all it showed me.
Was it that sort of size or what?
I don't think it was. Well, it might have been, but it didn't have nothing like to hook on or attach to anything. It looked like it was completely solid. You know, like you get a cigar and there's like a hook to hook another cigar or anything onto it.
Yeah.
It was like completely white, completely smooth, no out exterior. It was like it was made of one piece.
That's not interesting. So and that was a craft or what?
Don't know. It just looked like a missile, and I was like, they were showing me it for some reason.
Right. Now this is something else. Obviously, this is another scene.
So on my first abduction, it wasn't until I went to redo when I did my interview and all my recalling and things like that. David Hodgin asked me to do a drawing, very like a detailed drawing of the house. So what you'll see there is a top view, like a doll's house view, if you like, of the inside of the house where I lived and where I grew up, and where everyone was on the night I was first taken, and that was the drawing there.
Anything particular of interest in there?
Not really. It's just the thick black line you just see just off centre to the right.
This?
Yeah, that's where the beam of light came down. And it came through the ceiling, through the floor, and to the other end of that hallway.
Moved along there?
At the other end of the arrow is where I was. I was
Here.
stood. No, that's where I was on my bed when I first got up. In the little doorway, you see a little. That's
Then
me.
that's
I was
you
stood
there.
there.
That's you there.
Stood there. And I went to take a step forward, and that light shot towards me. I turned round to run back into my room to jump in my bed, and the light overtook me, and I don't remember anything.
And these are the other rooms with your family?
Yeah, yeah. My mum and dad was in their bed there, and my three brothers. Yeah, they're my three brothers' bed. That's my three brothers' single beds.
There?
And that's my mum and dad's bed.
That's your mum, dad. That's your three. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's you.
Yeah, that's me. That's my
You're
bed.
the grown-up elder sister. Is that right?
No, that's me. That was me before. Literally, I was laid in bed, got up and walked to the door. So I don't have any other sisters. No, that was just me.
Okay. So you have your three brothers and.
Yeah, my mum and dad.
And have you had any physical children in this realm?
No, I had 2 ectopic pregnancies and a few miscarriages. No living children.
Okay, and this is a closer up of that first.
Yeah, so this is a close-up of the night they took me and my partner, where we both became ill, and that's a picture of the one with the biscuit tin for a head, and that's the night I became very ill.
And that is circa when?
That's about 10 years ago, 8-10 years ago.
Okay. Moving on, and I think that's maybe the same thing. No, that's
No,
a different machine.
So this was just after. So when they took me, and they took me to the pods and showed me the baby, after they showed me the baby, I was they couldn't subdue
Sorry,
me.
this is in the
So what happened
the
was
one with the drawers.
directly after I saw the baby and they took the baby away.
Sorry, you're talking about with the pods.
Pods, yeah. It all went bright white light, and they took me into another room. This is the other room. This is all the same. This is the next night, that night or the next night. They took me again, and they were there.
That's when the big jars, the big.
Yeah. So I saw the pods, and they took me. It all went bright lights. They obviously moved me to another location. Now I've never seen them frightened or move away or move around an object. They seem very belligerent, the little ones. But this is the only time I've seen them frightened. They were scared to death. Now, I've never seen them frightened. They don't express emotion, but they did not want to be near that thing that was coming towards me. They did not want to be near me on that bed, on that bench, and yeah, they didn't want to be in that room, and they were huddled together. That's the first thing I really noticed was their behaviour. They were huddled in the bottom left-hand corner there. So you'll see me.
So they were all scared and huddled there.
Yeah. So what happened was that after the bright white light.
Now you're on the table here.
I'm on the table. Now the one that knows me came up behind me slightly to my right.
That's that one.
Yeah, and he said to me, "You're on your own for this," and they all stepped back over to the corner. Now, I was on this huge bench. Normally, a bench seems quite small. This thing looked huge. I was in the middle of it, and there was loads of room. And I'm a big person. There's loads of room around this thing. It was like a giant operating table. I have no idea. And I was laid there naked, looking up, and I could just move my eyes slightly. I couldn't move any part of my body. It was like I was frozen, but I was down. I don't really like being down. I was up slightly at an angle, and this thing was there. And all of a sudden, I realised that something moved, something caught my corner out my right eye, and it was like a movement. And all of a sudden, it was like an unwindy or snaky movement. And all of a sudden, this thing, it was a cross between a snake and an octopus. Now I work at a zoo.
So that's
just the neck of this thing. Now I've seen
going back and not going the whole way around.
Yeah, so it was unwinding. All of a sudden, it came from behind this panel and it swung out right behind the panel and put its head over me. Now, that neck must have been a good 12 to 6. It came out like that and up. The neck, it was something like a giraffe movement. So I work at zoo and I've seen giraffes. You know when giraffes swing their neck around? It was like that kind of movement. So it looked big and heavy. The neck was at least 12 feet long. And the head was at least 2 feet wide on that thing. It was wider than my body.
So your body, you're saying...
I'm there. I was naked there. It came up over my feet. It was probably came...
So this is as close to relative size.
Yeah. It was wider than my body. Its head was wider than my body. It was a good 2 feet... 2 feet... It was bigger than my head. It was a good 2 feet long. And maybe 2 feet wide. It was huge. And it came down like a narrow thing like that. And it had two big eyes. But as the eyes got... What happened? It came up over, had like a big dent and groove down its face, like an inward nose. It didn't have anything outwards. Like a groove between the eyes and like a very thin squeezed mouth. But the eyes were here. And it came up and stopped. And I felt hot. I came over hot. Normally I don't feel anything. I came over hot. I thought I was going to die. This thing came up and I thought that was it. I couldn't move. There was no way off. I thought it was dead. I thought it was going to eat me, and it kind of stopped. And as it stopped, it came up, and then it rose up and it came down, and it was looking at my face. It was like there, and I could see behind its eyes. It had like lenses behind its eyes, and it didn't want to connect with me. It didn't want to link with me. I got the feeling it wanted to see me with its own eyes, and it just came really close to my face, and then pulled away. And as it pulled away, everything went bright white light. And I was being put back. I was in a little room, laid flat, really tiny room, laid flat. It was all white and it all went bright white light, and I don't remember nothing else.
Well, that's amazing. Okay, we have something about numbers, is that right?
All right, so David Hodgson has always said to me, keep a pen and piece of paper by the bed. And if you ever... so I keep a book, I've done for years, like a little scrapbook next to the bed. If I wake up with ideas or anything, I write it down. Well, they when they give me the choice if I want to go with him or not, for a couple of nights I had this, like I would say, like weird dreams. I don't think I was taken. But the night after these weird dreams, it was like a bright white flash and I was flying places. And they kept showing me these different places. And then this number... They said I had to, because I wasn't going to stay. They was going to put me back. He said, you're brave, you'll die on Earth. This is how you're going to die. He said there would be a war, but I've put it there, in the year 2022 to 2024. He said that something else will happen between 2026 and 2028. And they were showing me symbols and numbers. And those symbols mean 17. Now, these said...
Referring to that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they showed me that symbol. And I knew it meant 17. And the numbers, they show me all these long numbers. And when I gave them to David Hodgson, the long numbers, and David Hodgson put the numbers in, and apparently it's the same weight or thingy ratio as something to do with Jupiter. But they said I had to remember the number 1359. He said, you need to remember that number, 1359. So I thought, is it 1389? It was 1359.
That one there.
Yeah. I couldn't remember. It was 1358 or 1359, but it's definitely 1350 because I wrote the number down and circled it, and then I contradicted. Then I was trying to double guess.
This is your actual note that you wrote.
Yeah,
at the time.
1359. He said you must remember 1359. And then he said the others are coming. I said, what do you mean? He said the others are coming. He said, they're not supposed to come here, but they do. And I'm like, what does that mean? He said, we're leaving soon. He said, but the others will come in. And I know they're not nice, but he told me then the others will come in. So this was actually not that long ago. about 4-5 years ago. I was at my mum's house and it was Mother's Day. And I went to bed as normal, a night before Mother's Day actually. Went upstairs, actually it was in the granny annex at the time. Went upstairs to go to sleep, went to sleep, and I had this horrendous, what I thought was a dream. Now I had a dream I was flying and I was on a ship. But then I realised it was a weird ship. It didn't have a link. It didn't seem quite right. It was very detailed. But I seemed to be present in it, not like when you're dreaming. And when I was there, I was stood up and frozen against, I'm not sure if it was like a cage or a barrier or what, I don't know. I couldn't move. I could only look forward and I could look around the room. I couldn't move my head. And then I looked over to my left, slightly in front of me, and was my mother was laid. I thought she was dead. It looked like some kind of dentist chair with bubbles on it. It looked like some kind of dentist chair.
Is this to do
Yep.
with...
So there was a bloke, a man. He was a human being, man. There was two men there. One had like beige trousers on, a white like shirt, and the other one had like a vest on. They were wearing pig's masks, like a silicone pig's mask. And had trousers and shoes on. They were both wearing pig's masks, and one of them
Pig's
face,
like a pig's head.
Yeah, like a pig's head, yeah. But they were like a Halloween silicone mask. They both had one on each. And it took me, I thought I was seeing things. And then...
I think that's in one of George Harrison's pop
I
videos.
don't know. They were... And then he was one of them. I was so far... I wanted him to get... I couldn't talk. I wanted him to get away from my mum. They were doing something to my mum. And one of them was stood back watching him. And the other one had hold of my mum's hand. My mum was laid down, he had hold of my mum's right hand, and he was leant over to her. I couldn't see what he was doing. He had her hand on his shoulder, but he had hold of her hand, and he was talking to my mum in her right ear, and he was whispering and talking to my mum. And all of a sudden, the other one must have looked up and saw that I was awake. I'm not sure what he did, but he didn't like the fact that I was awake, and something happened, and the door opened like a camping, the door wasn't like a normal door. It looked like a camping door, like it folded back. And it's the first time I've ever seen a female one, and you can't tell the difference between male and females. Females seem smaller, but it's a different energy. The other ones give off male energy. This was female, definitely female energy. And she came into the room. She was holding what appeared to be a silver tray with like a yellow prong fork on it, like yellow.
And that looks like
prong.
a tuning fork.
Yeah. And it was quite long, about 1.5 feet long. But she looked at them and then she looked at me. She wouldn't take her eyes off me. And she did not like what they were doing. She didn't say anything to them. But they disregarded her a lot with a wave of her hand. They didn't have no respect for her, just like wave of her hand. And she backed off. And I see her look at her as if to say she was not pleased about what they were doing. She was not happy about what they were doing. I got that from her straight away. And I tried to move backwards as he came forwards, and it felt like someone injected me in the back of my arm. And my arm, it felt weird, the back of my arm, back of my right forearm. And he then took this prong off this fork and come up and he stabbed me in the head with it, in my forehead. And then it went blank for a couple of seconds. And then he stood there and he said something to the other one. The other man come up behind him. And he looked at shock. He looked at the end of the thing and looked at me, as if to say it didn't work. And the other man, I could see by his eyes, through this pig's mask, that he looked shocked. And then I think he said something to him and he did it again. And that's all I remember. And when I woke up in the morning, I went into the hallway, switched my mum's computer on and put some like Mother's Day cards out for her and got her flowers and it out. And I had my pyjamas on and like a t-shirt pyjama. It was a bit warm. She had the central heating on. Didn't have a dressing gown on. I had my trousers, my dressing gown and trousers on. And my mother walked down the stairs. And while she was walking down the stairs, she said, "Oh, put the kettle on, Tina." I'm like, "Yeah, Mum." And I was just sat at the computer doing something for her. She said, "I had this terrible dream last night. I met an old friend. As my hand so cold, she held my hand and my hand felt like it froze to death." I like, "What?" She said, "Yeah, my friend was whispering and talking in my ear and my hand felt cold." And I was absolutely petrified. I was terrified. I knew then it was real. And then she goes to me, oh my God, last couple of steps she was coming down. Oh my God, Tina, what have you done to yourself? I'm like, what, Mum? She said, there's a huge lump at the back of your arm where they'd stabbed me with this needle thing. She said, what have you done? Have you hurt yourself? I'm like, no, Mum. And I looked around, I could see this pink lump hanging out the back of my arm. It was like when they give like a flu vaccine or a vaccine shot and your arm comes up pink. It looked like that on the back of my arm. And I made a cup of tea. Anyway, as the day progressed, I got worse, didn't feel well, started shaking, thought it was a flu. Went up to go to the toilet. I think I vomited and then couldn't breathe. Came over, I started breathing hard, started breathing fast. I was sweating, not sure what happened. Felt dizzy, couldn't talk, scream for help. All I remember, it was being dizzy. I went to sit on the toilet. I think I was going to sit on the toilet. I'm not sure what happened. I was in the bathroom and I don't even remember hitting the floor. The next thing I know, my partner was there, my mum was there, and someone was shouting in the house. They were on the phone to emergency services. I think I tried to get up and couldn't breathe, couldn't get myself to breathe. And then next thing I know, there was an ambulance, 2 or 3 ambulance ladies over me, and a guy. And they had they were getting the pads out on me, and they was saying that the equipment wasn't working. For some reason, they had this thing, it wasn't charging, and they couldn't do anything. So they had to run down to another ambulance. There was apparently an ambulance car and 2 ambulances outside my mum's house. And there was a few people by then in the bathroom, at least 4 or 5 paramedics in the bathroom with me on the floor. I'm not sure how long they were there with me, and they kept like trying to talk to me. And next thing I know, I don't know, you can't take, time's different. And I was being taken down the stairs, and in one of these ambulances, I was in the ambulance for a long time, I think, before they took me anywhere. And they were trying to put a like, oxygen mask on. They were trying to, they're doing all types of things. I think there was on the radio to the hospital. I heard the sirens, and they took me into hospital. And my family weren't allowed in the ambulance, I don't think, with me. I think they followed behind in the car. And when I got there, they took me into the resuscitation room. Next to the resuscitation room, at Southampton General Hospital, there's an emergency room. So either if you die or you've got resuscitation or you're quarantined, they put you in this room, and it's right next to the resus and the emergencies in the majors department at Southampton General Hospital. And they have cameras like they do here in the ceiling. And I remember being in there, I sat up and they give me oxygen. And I think I'd vomited again when I came round. And my family were there, and I had one of their gown things on. And this female doctor, very good doctor, came in. She was speaking to me. She'd taken blood earlier. They did lots of things. I think they took some urine sample, blood, took a couple of different bloods. I'd had an X-ray, and they gave me a head scan. And they said that they're not sure if I'd had a stroke. They don't think I'd had a stroke, but again, they said that there was a part in my brain that there was no blood or fluid in. She said they're not quite sure what happened, but she had like PPE on. She had like a yellow mask and stuff in. But then all of a sudden, when she was talking to me, this woman, she looked like a cross between a security guard and I'm not quite sure, one of the porters. But she had like yellow boots on, yellow gown on, with a yellow mask, with like these yellow gloves on. And she came in, she grabbed my arm, and the doctor said, "Who are you?" And she said, "We've taken more blood, we need to have more blood." She said, "Well, I've just sent blood off again." And I'm not sure if I'd been there 2 hours or 3 hours, but they'd taken loads and loads of blood. I had a cannula in. Literally, the doctor was physically saying to this woman across the bed, "This is my patient, leave her alone, where are your credentials, what are you doing?" This woman just stabbed a needle in my arm, took loads of blood, 2 or 3 like things of blood, and the doctor says, "Where are you taking it?" Anyway, this woman went off. I said, "Tina, I'll be back in a minute." My mum was there physically. My doctor was laying across my body. And don't forget, there's cameras up recording all of this. And she went off and she went to the nurse's station. The door was like a swing door. Because of quarantine, you couldn't really... And I could see that she was out there. Didn't feel too good.
Sorry, is this during COVID?
No, this was before COVID.
Right.
Before COVID.
Okay.
And they wasn't sure what I had. And the next thing I know, this woman came back. My doctor came in and she said, "Who are you? Where are you taking my patient?" She came back with another man who looked like an orderly, this woman in yellow, and she was taken physically, pushing my bed from A&E. So we're taking her to a side ward. She said, "I'm this lady's doctor. I'm looking after her. Tell me where you're taking my patient." And my doctor was literally laying on the bed trying to stop this woman and bloke from taking me. I couldn't do nothing. I was so weak. All these monitors were buzzing and bleeping. My mum was there. My partner was there. Didn't know what was going on. This doctor was screaming, telling them to stop. They eventually got me to this side ward, which was like a quarantine ward. And I was put in this room with that had like a big windows in front of it. And I was hooked up to this thing with IV antibiotics. I wasn't allowed out the room. There was a nurse that came in who took urine, blood samples. There was a toilet in the room, like a trolley toilet, which was left there. They didn't take samples out the room. They, I don't think I was allowed to eat, or they gave me something. I'm not quite sure what happened, but I was there for 3 days. 3 days. By the next morning, I was like in a daze in between. They came and changed it. And on this last morning, no one came and told me what was going on. No one would talk to me. And there's all this sample stuff just sat by my sink, like all the samples they'd taken in jars. No one took anything out of the room. And no one explained to me what was in these drugs they were giving me. And this doctor came in, must have been like 6 o'clock in the morning, 5:30. This nurse came in, the doctor came in, and he said, "Oh, Tina, we think you've had a migraine. You'll be good to go home. We're going to discharge you." Picked up all the samples, took all the paper out of the room and left. And so I'm sat there, couldn't find my clothes. I think they were underneath the bed. So next thing I know, it must have been about 2 hours later, and a nurse came in. I hadn't seen no one on the ward. And I said, "Oh, I'm going home today." She said, "Who said that, Tina?" I said, "The doctor came in. I've been discharged. Apparently I've had bad migraine." She said, "You're not going nowhere. The doctor hasn't even been on the ward to do their rounds." I said, "Yeah, he said I could go home. I've had a migraine, which is why I've been sick." She said, "You don't have antibiotics for being sick." She said, "You don't stay in a quarantine ward for being sick." She said, "You're not going home until the doctor says." Anyway, this doctor I'd never met come onto the ward. By then it was 11 o'clock in the morning, so nurses had changed shifts again. And this other nurse came in, she goes, "You're free to go." They wrote me a prescription for aspirin, some other pain relief and something else, and sent me home with a discharge note saying I'd had migraine for 3 days.